Hey everybody, I hope everybody is well. Today is May 6th, 2020, Wednesday. I know we got some bad news on Monday that we won't be coming back to school at least until September. Hopefully we'll be back then. So without further ado, I just wanted to kind of go over what was expected this week or tonight rather with the career cluster with government and public administration. So for the activity that you guys had to do for tonight, you had to go through the 7 career pathways within the career cluster, government and public administration. Within them, I wanted you to discuss basically one of the 7 pathways, giving me a paragraph or 5 bullet points. So in essence, you're going to complete 7 paragraphs total or 35 bullet points because there's 7 career pathways that you could pick, and that that you do the math on it. So of the ones that were there, you had several. The one that I always found interesting, particularly, was regarding the governance. You have governance, national security, foreign services, planning. You have revenue and taxation, regulation, public management, administration. You have all these that are there. I think regarding governance, that to me is interesting. It's kind of more politics that you're looking at. So one of the things that's cool about politics, even if you are into politics, you like it, but you don't have maybe the charisma to be a politician, there are a lot of jobs working on a campaign. The only thing about those jobs that you may want to think otherwise about is that they are very temporary a lot of times by nature, unless you're working for a think tank in DC. Let's just say hypothetically you're working for a lobbyist firm. You could go there, but they're very hard to get those jobs. And not only that, those jobs are not exactly secure. So that's something to think about. One thing I would recommend, if any of you want to run for an office, I'd recommend working on a campaign. It's good to work on a campaign as well as being the leader that's actually running for the office. So there are a lot of people out there who are good campaign managers, but they're not politicians per se. So they're not going to be elected themselves, but they can help somebody get elected. That's kind of what they do more. It's not uncommon for a campaign manager to make more money than the person in the actual job. So it's just one of the things that how that happens. I mean, just to give you an idea, President Trump makes 400,000. Actually, he's not taking a salary, even though the salary for the president is 400,000 bucks a year. I guarantee you, his campaign manager is making more than 400,000 bucks for the year. So it's one of those industries. If you want to get into and you're good as a campaign manager, you can definitely do it. You can definitely push through with it. As far as what lobbyists are concerned, we just mentioned that a second ago. Do some reading on what a lobbyist might do. There are lobbyists in Washington, D.C., there's lobbyists in Trenton that will try to push certain agendas that they want uh, to the legislature, some things that they want policy wise. That's kind of how they do things as far as their jobs are concerned. Regarding national security, that was one that I was really interested in doing right when I completed my master's in history. And I got an MA in history for the reason that I wasn't sure exactly if I wanted to teach at that point or if I wanted to maybe work, in the federal government, law school. I really just didn't know. In 2008, the economy was pretty bad, almost like it is right now, but it was different as far as the collapse because there was banking. This is caused by a pandemic, so it's not quite. It's little apples and oranges more than it being the same thing. So what I'm saying for national security, I was looking more to work for the State Department, something more with the CIA, dealing more as an analyst, kind of a position. So just to give you an idea, back in 2011 when I finished my master's in history, I just started in the district. And, I was curious. I applied for a job at the CIA as an analyst, to serve as an intelligence analyst for European affairs. And so I went there. I took a bunch of tests. There's a bunch of assessments I had to go through. And I went down to Langley and I had to get a polygraph done. It was the most nerve-wracking experience of my life. I mean, I walked out of that. My body was just covered in sweat. And they asked you everything. They asked you everything. In New Jersey, if any of you are looking at becoming a state trooper or a local law enforcement here in Jersey, there is no polygraph requirement. They don't do it because it is not against it's against the law in New Jersey. Maybe do some research on it on yourselves. Should the polygraph be required to become to join law enforcement federally? There's a lot of debate with it. Some people find it not to be great. Um, you can also go into the military. As far as becoming an intelligence officer, that's a good way to go. As far as working in national security, just keep in mind, if any of you are looking at joining the military, it's not necessarily that you're going to be doing something national security related, even though that is going to be the main goal. So I'll give you an example. My old next door neighbor, Matthew O'Reilly. He is a captain. I'm sorry, he's a lieutenant now in the Navy, and he is a doctor. He is a medical doctor, and he works for the Navy. He is a lieutenant. He's a commissioned officer. However, his job doesn't involve combat whatsoever. So, the military is very broad. There's a lot of different jobs within it. One of my wife's cousins, her husband is a fire chief for the Air Force down in Georgia. So he is a staff sergeant. That's his rank. But he has nothing to do with you know the the fighting per se of the military. He's there to help with the fires on the base. So if any of you guys ever go to Fort Dix or McGuire, it's huge. It's a lot of area that's comprised there. So that's something to keep in mind if any of you are thinking about going military officer route. Regarding planning, I know some of you in this class that I've taught are very organized and you're very detailed oriented. Maybe a job as a planner, working for the government would be a good job to try to develop something. So, just to give you an example of what a planner might do, um, let's say Hamilton Marketplace, when that was going to be constructed, an economic planner by the government is going to help design that, and they're going to put it in a certain situation as to where it's going to succeed, how it's going to do well. Think about Hamilton Shops. Do you guys remember Hamilton Shops right there over on Route 130? Um, Whoever planned that did a horrible job because when it was first built, I never forget this. You could not make, if you're going southbound on Route 130, you couldn't make a left into the shopping center. Instead, you had to go up. You got to go south, continue south on Route 130, and you had to veer to the right and go up Route 156, like you're going towards Wildflowers and Yardville. You had to go up that, make a left onto Yardville Allentown Road, and then you had to make another left going north back on Route 130. So by the time you passed it going south, it was about a mile or so you would drive. And that shopping center just never really took mustard, never really did well. So you can point to certain elements of like how, a subdivision, or like an office park, anything is done. A lot of times a city planner is going to design that. You can point to examples of like, shopping centers that have done well. You can credit the city planner for doing that, or it hasn't done well. A lot of times the city planner, that's on them for not doing as well as it could. So it's an example there of where things need to definitely improve. What you guys had to do tonight for your video, I had you guys for your activity. You had to watch a video about IRS special agents. So in the event that you fail to pay your taxes or you're doing something fraudulent with your money, the IRS is there. Their special agents are there to arrest you, and that's something that they're there for. So the Internal Revenue Investigators, that kind of goes with revenue taxation. You can make the argument that they are, in some regards, national security because they are in some respects. I mean, if you're not paying your taxes, there's not money to go around and pay for things. So that's something that they do. If you're looking at going into that area, you can definitely go for it. So I thought that was interesting. The Internal Revenue Investigator, definitely something there. I thought that was fascinating. You also have tax examiner. You have tax clerks are usually working locally. A revenue agent, an assessor, an auditor. So if you want to be an assessor, they're basically going to assess the value of a house, and that'll determine how much taxes you got to pay. So that's something there with an assessment that they have to do. Um, so as far as the rest of them were concerned, let's see what are some more you guys had. As far as regulation, you had a bunch that were there. I thought the border inspector is interesting. You do have child support, a lot like officers. It varies tremendously. You have election supervisors. You want to make sure dead people aren't voting or people that had problems aren't voting. It's definitely an issue. Although voter fraud is relatively a not so often committed offense, it can happen. So it's something that is very important to keep in mind. Um, and again, the last thing I had you guys doing was public management administration. And so these kind of go more into the area of the courts. So if you want to work as a city manager or a court administrator, these are often the people that are there. So these are all the areas that you can go for that are also within public management and administration. As far as the rest of the week is concerned, the first assignment that you guys have is pretty simple. All you're doing is just writing one paragraph for today on what does a special agent do with the IRS. It's a 10-minute video. I'm just looking for a paragraph. This is a quick independent grade. I know I've been hitting with you guys with a lot of assignments and you're getting a lot of other courses. I figured this is a nice little easier assignment. I also posted the assignment for Thursday, which is not going to be due till Saturday. I did it last night. So I gave you guys some time on it. This is just a 5 paragraph response I want you to do. It's going to be a summative grade. And basically, I want you to pick three careers, pick up to 3 careers the 3 career clusters we've learned to be any 3 careers within the clusters. It could be different pathways, same pathway, it doesn't matter, whichever you guys prefer. In there, I do want you to analyze the job descriptions, talk about salary, education, benefits, what are drawbacks, other pertinent details that are there. So, if you're thinking about doing public service government, public administration government, there are a lot of different jobs, and the hours will vary tremendously. Like I'll give you an example. A lot of my friends are police officers. Many of them are working, and some are working reasonable hours. Some of them are not working reasonable hours. So it's the good thing about education. I mean, I don't, luckily I don't have to be out there risking my life or my family's life from coronavirus. As a teacher, I could stay home. But if you're in law enforcement or you're in fire, that could depending on where you might be. Um, you also have health and services, like I said. So there's a lot of areas that you can talk about with health. It doesn't have to be a medical doctor. It could be physical therapist. There's different kinds of physical therapy, different kinds of medical professionals. So that's fine. Either way is fine. I'm not so strict with you guys how you guys want to pick this one, but it's up to you how you guys want to decide it. So I'll leave this up here. If you guys have any questions for me today, just please let me know. Hope you guys are well. Um, be safe. Make sure you guys wash your hands. Have a good one.